Hi, my name is Samuel Price, the Crypto Lifer, and I've been trading for over 15 years. And today I'm going to give you a macro technical analysis for Bitcoin. Total market cap of all cryptocurrencies, total market cap of all the altcoins, the DXY, Bitcoin dominance, Tether dominance, gold, the S&P futures, NASDAQ, and SOL. Let's take a look at what's happening in the general markets here for Bitcoin. We're going to break it down for you. That's the first thing we're going to look at. And then we're going to kind of keep going into these other assets. This is going to give us a look into where liquidity is flowing and give us somewhat of a probability if we're going to get a bounce, if there's going to be more, downside. Stay tuned. Let's take a look at these markets right away. So the first thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been struggling, right? Ever since it double topped up here at about $103,000, $106,000. It did get a high on the wicks, but you didn't really get a weekly candle to close above about $104,000. So that was your double top area. We went over it many times on this macro analysis every single week. I pulled Fibonacci's. We kept saying, hey, don't be surprised if Bitcoin comes back down somewhere to 68, 66,000. That's still possible. We're kind of rolling over here. And yes, there was some buy pressure into Bitcoin, but we've already eaten half of that wick up already on some downside movement. There's a chance maybe we could take it out. So I'm not, everyone else is saying that the bottom has to be in, but I'm open-minded that there could be more downside here for BTC. And I'm also open-minded that there's a chance we could pump. I stay, I take it one day at a time. This is a beautiful flag. There's an algorithmic move, and that says, hey, you could get up somewhere to 143,000 by the end of May if we could get a turnaround here. But right now, I'm looking at some key levels. I'm looking at this weekly, and I'm looking at the level of 93,700. If we can get back above 93.7, I would start to become more of a bull. If not, we have to assume that that's going to be a resistance area and that we could just continue to correlate further lower if we can't get back above 93,700. So we got to get back above 93.7 to remain bullish, in my humble opinion. Otherwise, we could see some serious struggling. So in the next 2-3 weeks, you'd like that. Now, Bitcoin go 1, 2, 3, 4. It might even go sideways for 4 weeks in this nose, the end of this falling wedge, and then break on out of here. That could happen and never touch these weeks, and we could just consolidate for 4 to 5 more weeks. That is in the cards. Look, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4, and then finally try to break on out. The key is if Bitcoin breaks 93.7 and does a retest, that would be the key area that you'd be looking to open up a master long. And there would be a cup and handle there. You'd probably have some hidden bullish, and you'd get further to the upside. The one thing that is somewhat bullish for Bitcoin is the 3-day chart. And the 3-day right now has what's called hidden bullish divergence. If you swing this up and you swing the RSI down, that's a downtrend, that's an uptrend. It tells you that you're likely not going to break this low. What it says is you'll break these highs before you break this low. I've seen it play out. It's 90% accurate. So it's saying with a 90% chance that Bitcoin won't go much lower. It'll meander around here, but eventually break further to the upside. So we're watching 3-day hidden bullish. All right. And then we're going to kind of, move on into the daily. And to me, the daily, yes, you can say it's in this falling wedge like so and can break out. But it's also in this broadening falling wedge if you put it in this smaller channel. And to me, these do break out, but you're hugging a higher low. And then everyone is watching this 4-hour symmetrical triangle. So right now, Bitcoin's sitting right here. And this may dump by the time you watch this because we're going to have the crypto summit and that's all going to come out. But right now, we're watching a symmetrical triangle that could break either way. These mainly dump to the downside. So it would... this would age well if this dumps because that's what's supposed to happen. You kind of have a shoulder, head, right shoulder. Bitcoin's struggling to hold 87,000. So if I had to call it, it says Bitcoin's going to go further to the downside. Now I see chop on the bigger macro events. And now what's the bearish sign? The bearish sign is the daily would lose the 200 MA. If the daily lose the 200 MA, you're likely going to drop down to the 2-day 200 MA. And that's going to take Bitcoin somewhere to 72, 73,000. And you're going to take out that wick yet again. So I got mixed signals for Bitcoin. Really, we got to watch what happens in the crypto summit. If you get, on the macro, you want to see Bitcoin get back above 99,000. You want to see Bitcoin get back above 93.7. If we are bearish, you're going to lose the daily 200 MA, and that's going to usually spell disaster. So I'm watching the symmetrical triangle. They mainly do break down. So the odds there are saying lower. And, and then I could tell what will happen if we do lose the daily 200 MA. So I can see the bearish scenario, and I can show you how to trade it. I'm open-minded for it. And I can also see the bullish. Right now, it's suggesting that the bearish scenario is more coming into play, at least for a move down to 74,005. But again, anything is possible. But that looks like it's going to roll over, take out this low, and then come all the way back down to about $75,000. So Bitcoin doesn't look good right now, I'll be honest. It doesn't look amazingly bullish. There's some bullishness, on a few charts, but for the most part, it's got indecision. You got the crypto summit coming, and it just, not as bullish as you would think it would be today, for instance, with all the news. Again, trade the charts. Don't trade the news. Show me the charts, and I'll show you the news. We look at the total market cap. Same exact thing. We can extend this inside of a bigger symmetrical triangle. And we know these mainly dump to the downside. So we'd be looking for the total market cap to take a slump today and go further down somewhere to $2.51 trillion. So it does look like we may have a bearish move here. But again, you never know. I'm open-minded. So the smart move would be wait for us to break back above 2.97 trillion and possibly catch a retest. Right now, the whole world waits at the summit as we sit inside of this. The bull scenario is we crack above this 200 MA on the 4-hour and we boom up at least to 365. The bearish scenario is we lose the 200 MA here. And once we close the candle below that, you were forced to concede that you're headed down to the 2-day 200 MA, which would send us to $2.54 trillion. Now we're going to jump into total 3, which is going to be like a broken record. It should look somewhat exactly similar. When we look at total 3, we can see that we've held the 200 MA here on the daily, just like we talked about. If we close below that, we got to suggest that we're head down to the 2-day 200 MA, and that sends us to the 786, and that could even drop us all the way to $633 billion. So it's very crucial that the daily holds this yellow line. It's very crucial that this is just like the last kind of scare tactic here before we get our bigger move to the upside. One could go long with a stop below. And, that's high risk, but it also says, hey, the odds are good that this could continue on out. Now, if it goes below and you get stopped out, then you can switch short because you're below the 200 MA. Yes, we did wick here, so you're going to wait for a candle to close. You want to see a daily candle close below this. If you do that, that would be short territory for me. As long as a daily candle doesn't close below it, no matter how bearish they make it look, we're going to be in good shape. So I stay, right now we're hanging on by a thread. We're still bullish because we're above the daily 200 MA. We lose that, and we have to concede that we're going to see some more downside. So what do I see happening? Honestly, a lot of days I can give you the probability. Today it's sketchy with the crypto market coming. And what I would tell you is, I remain optimistic as long as we stay above the daily 200 MA. A good chance we can get a bounce to the upside. So while everyone's a little more bearish, I am somewhat optimistic because we're staying above it. The second a daily candle closes below that level, though, that would tell me that we're in distress and that things would probably, aren't going to be in the best state. So, and shorting would be the answer. So right now, indecision, but we're above the 200 MA on the daily. And this falling wedge could break to the upside 68% of the time. If we put it here, that would send you back up to somewhere $1.14 trillion. We want to get back above 1 trillion, that psychological level. Falling wedge, previous support is resistance, touching the 21. We should be getting a bounce here back to the upside, but only time will tell. Now we take a look at Bitcoin dominance. When Bitcoin dominance sends a pump for 2 reasons. The market tanks, and people want to run into an asset that's not going to tank as bad as their altcoin, which is Bitcoin, or Bitcoin's about to go on a tear. Now, with the reserve coming out, and you think they're going to talk, but it looks like this is just in some chop. I see this going sideways for a few days before we get our bigger move. If Bitcoin tanks, Bitcoin dominance will likely drop and shoulder, head, right shoulder. It kind of looks like that's what's happening. But if Bitcoin starts to make a move, we're going to get Bitcoin dominance to rip. So I'm watching this get tight. Bitcoin dominance suggests it's still in the flag and still could get busy. The only thing I have to tell you is this could pump if the market dumps down because people will run out of their altcoins for Bitcoin. And you could see that correlated move. So remember, Bitcoin dominance pumps for 2 reasons. When people run out of altcoins and Tether, when the market's ripping up because Bitcoin's the one, and when the whole market's going down and people run into Tether and into Bitcoin out of altcoins because they want to find something better than an altcoin because an altcoin is absolutely going down and way worse than Bitcoin is. So this looks like we're going to make some type of right shoulder. Then it may dump. It looks like next week we'll probably be still in some indecision here. On the dominance. It also kind of correlates that we may not get a huge pump today. Then you look at Tether dominance, which came up with a vengeance to the upside, and you think more people would be wanting to get out of the Tether, but right now that's just not the case. And so Tether is in the exact same symmetrical triangle that Bitcoin's in. It's interesting, these mainly break to the downside, but Tether has the low, the higher low, and it's above the 200 MA on the daily. As long as Tether dominance stays above the 200 MA on the daily, we could see a resurgence here in Tether dominance, which means people would be running out of altcoins And it would say that we're going to have some type of nasty recession. So this is starting to shape up like we're going to get a nasty dump somewhere down to 4.28. That's just what it's looking like it's going to happen. And we're staying above the 200 MA here as well on the daily time frame. You know, that's your one saving grace. So be careful, because like Bitcoin dumps, this will pump. They're both in symmetrical triangles, giving you mixed signals either way, right? This is more oversold. It did hit a resistance, though, and you'd be like, why would people want to be in the Tether dominance? Well, we get a recession and things start to slip. People are going to run into Tether. Today's going to tell us a story, everyone. And honestly, I wish I could give you a better probability, but right now we have 50-50, and it could go either way. What you really want to do is you do not want to lose that daily 200 MA on Tether dominance. I mean, you want to lose it. If you lose it, that's going to be a good sign for our market. If you stay above it, then we're going to lose the 200 MA on Bitcoin. You see? So either one of these on the daily is going to lose. One of them is going to lose that 200 MA. Whichever one does is going to tell the story. If this one loses it, Bitcoin rips. If Bitcoin loses it, people are going to run into Tether, right? And we're going to be in some type of bigger pullback. The DXY, which had a massive down. So this is the one we talked about. So if you were watching me last week and all the last few weeks, we talked about this right shoulder, and we talked about the fact that we were going to dump to the downside. We talked about that we could lose the 200 MAs. You know, I talked about losing the 200 MA on the daily, on the 3-day chart. And look, we're about to do that too. We showed this head and right shoulder. So if you look at it, you can see kind of, it's almost like it's retesting this top trend line too, though, and it could bounce there. But shoulder, head, right shoulder, resistance, resistance. And we did call this right shoulder. We were looking for this dump, and we did get it. What now? What do I see happening to the DXY into next week? Well, it dumped pretty hard. For me, it would have to kind of break back inside this pattern and then reach the bottom. So if it breaks back in here, it would have to drop somewhere back down to here. You know? If anything, you're looking for that V-shaped recovery back above the 200 MA for the DXY. Then it would get tight, you know, give the trouble for Bitcoin. I'd like to say have it stay below. Right now, again, mixed signals. What we want to see is you want to see your next candle hit and go below this level. And then that's going to let you know that Bitcoin can soar. You want to make sure that the DXY stays below the 200 MA. You want to watch that closely. If you see a candle start to break above this 200 MA on the DXY, that's definitely could spell trouble for BTC. Only thing I don't love about this is we had a huge dump on the DXY, and we should have got way more of a pump for Bitcoin, but we didn't. You know, actually, Bitcoin's slumping even right now at 86,500. So the DXY and Bitcoin dumping together instead of having them be oppositely correlated like they usually are. And again, that can happen. You know, you don't always want to say something is definite, but the key is we don't, you know, for risk on assets and for just in general, we would like to see the DXY stay below the 200 MA on the daily time frame. The S&P futures, I was looking for the bounce here, but we lost the daily 200 and we lost it today definitively. That usually begins the beginning of a bear market or some type of bigger pullback, unless they're willing to wick this thing back up somehow, some way by the end of today or maybe into the next week. But right now, I do have to concede that that is more bearish than bullish. All right, and I wanted to get that bounce, man, on the S&P, but we did not get it. Let's take a look at the weekly for the S&P. I mean, that's a bearish engulfing candle on the weekly now, right? So the weekly is nasty. It's a rising wedge. Rising wedges break down 68% of the time. You made a bit of a shoulder, head, right shoulder. You had bearish divergence, right? Definitely a pullback was coming, but there was a chance it was just going to be an inverted head and shoulder that bounces back to the upside. We are hugging the 200 MA, the 50 moving average on the weekly. That could help us, but I'll tell you what, every time, like I said, when you lose the daily 200 MA, it's just very likely the S&P is going to drop. So unless we get some crazy correlative move back up and we get back above that daily 200 MA, it does look like we're headed lower for the S&P. And when you lose the daily 200 MA, you usually come down to the 2-day 200 MA. So the S&P looks like it's going to go lower. I have to be honest. I'm going to concede a little bit here, and that's a bear flag that it made earlier today. So for whatever reason, the big boys are deciding that the market is too frothy. They don't want to be in it. Warren Buffett's probably getting into cash. People are getting into cash here, and you can see a move to the downside. Is there any divergence that could save the day? Nothing at the present moment that's strong. Let's take a look at the 15-minute. The 15-minute, slightly because you're slanted down there, but still not a good sign. You would have to, basically, even right now, I'd have to kind of, say that this looks like it's going to go at least down to 55.33, and then the next target would take you to 5,365. You're looking for the 2-day 200 MA. That would be your next target once you lose the daily 200 MA. Still have that like 0.1% that we could rip back up, and this could be a shoulder, a head, or right shoulder, because I know they got to print money, and I'm like, if they print money, how do they dump the S&P then? It doesn't make sense, but the charts are telling us that lows are coming, so you can't make logical sense of the market. You just got to do what the market tells you. The market tells you lost the daily 200 MA, you're headed down to the 2-day 200 MA, and that is your next target, or at least down to support at 5,518. The NASDAQ will do exactly the same thing. They will look directly exactly the same. And here, look, previous support is resistance. The only weird thing is that you're on weekly support on the NASDAQ. Resistance right there, bounce. Usually you'll get a bounce off weekly support. It's very rare that you don't, and you're getting more oversold. However, we have been frothy. We've been pushed up for so long. There's a bearish div right here on the NASDAQ, okay? And I did have a position in the S&P that I inherited from my mom, and I sold it. I did sell it. You know, my parents died, and she had that for years. And I sold it somewhere around here because I wanted to put it into real estate. So that's, there were certain places I would like to live. And, despite the market, you can live your whole life on percentages, but then eventually you got to live somewhere, right? So, but that's bearish diff. And, there was a chance that I saw them dropping it, but it looked to me like they were going to bounce it off the daily 200 MA. Today, it looks like and last night, it looks like that's not going to be the case. Again, the same thing for this. You'd have to suggest that we're going to go down to 18,549. If we don't get a bounce, and then by the end of the day, I don't see how next week isn't a flush further to the downside. So the NASDAQ also looks pretty bearish. Let's take a look at gold. Gold just looks great, right? People are going to get into gold. As the markets dump, gold will stay sideways. I see gold just kind of going sideways, and then somewhere by May, beginning to break out again. And the bigger target for gold sends it to about $3,350. And last but not least, I like to look at SOLBTC, which when SOL was awesome and doing well and all coins were running, but you can kind of see now, if the whole market's going to dip, then SOL's going to dump even more than Bitcoin, and this is going to go the opposite way. So if we're in for bearishness, then SOL Bitcoin would look like it's going to go further down like it does. That's your macro analysis for the markets. You can see it doesn't look amazing. We were looking for the bounce on the daily 200 MA, but we did not get it. So usually you do. We got it there. We've gotten it there. We've gotten it a few times, and we have slipped it and gotten back above. It's not the end of the world. But when you look at the broader markets, the bigger pictures, we're not getting those bounces. You're looking for Bitcoin. You really want to see Bitcoin hold 87,000. You really want to see it break back above this channel and get tight. The second you lose this key level, you could only assume you're going back down to 83.3 and then start to go all the way to the target there at $75,000. So 87,192, Crypto Summit coming, 1 hour, and anything could happen. You'll be watching this probably a little while later because it's pre-recorded. Thank you so much for always taking the time to watch my videos. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching my live stream. We had a great week of trading in my trading group. Go to cryptolifer.com to find out more. I made awesome gains. You can track my gains, see what happened if you follow me in my trading group. We also have a weekly screen share we did yesterday, which was unbelievable every single Thursday night. I go live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. I can't wait to see you there. All right? It's going to be awesome. Also, go to cryptolifer.com to find out more, and I'll see you on the next video. If you came to the channel, then you're already doing the right thing. Crypto is life.